It's time to discuss the strength of the Cobra Kai characters, cause everyone else is just wrong when they do it, and I'm just better. I'm just kidding. I'm not. The no scaling fodder and doesn't know karate tiers are self-explanatory, but the rest of the tiers I will be going in depth for. We will talk about the weakest character in the tier and go up from there. Also, it is difficult to just purely go off with the skill stuff since we need to know how strong certain feats are. Therefore, calcs will be mentioned in this video, and all of them were done by my goat Ubereem. Shoutouts to bro for helping me make this tier list as fair as possible. And obviously there are a lot of things taken into account, like if people want to believe in more consistency rather than calcs, some stuff on the list would be different, and obviously I'm going to be calling those said things out. Cobra Kai is also just a weird verse in itself where everyone sort of scales to each other, so you could make an argument for one character being above another. I'm not going to be 100% right, but I think me and my goats from the Discord server have created a pretty decent tier list that most people would agree with in my opinion. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and let's get straight into it. In I tier, we have the Karate Kid 1 Season 1 and some weaker characters in Season 2. Vidal is the lowest person here due to not really having any reliable scaling to put his stats close to the Karate Kid 1 kids, whereas the Season 1 kids are portrayed to be more skilled in this era, and Xander is basically this version of Vidal, who Aisha is able to score on 2 times, and we know Season 2 she's stronger, but she doesn't really do anything to put her any higher. And above her we have Nerf Johnny, Injured Danny, and Unbalanced Robby, who are essentially the same kind of fighter, but with Robby having more skill. Season 1 Hawk beats this version of Robby, while Mikey, Steven, and Doug roughly can damage a Season 2 version of Hawk, and with Mitch by Season 3 going blow for blow with Mikey in Season 3. So they should be above Season 1 Hawk, along with the Karate Kid ones being the top dogs of this tier due to them being able to harm a non-injured Danny, and this would mean they would be able to put up a fight with Kid Johnny, who's capable of generating over 53 joules of energy. This is enough power to destroy a wall, which the Season 1 variants don't really have any scaling to, unless you want to upscale them from Dimitri in Season 2, but we will get into that in the next tier, which is Tier H. In Tier H, we have Prime KK1 Danny, Bobby, and Johnny, who just upscale from the KK1 Cobras. Bobby straight up beats Danny, and then it's implied that Prime Johnny is the strongest Cobra and would be technically able to beat Danny. So you know what, Johnny fanboys, I'll give you this. However, this is where Johnny's streak sadly stops, as Dimitri in Season 2 can generate more power than KK1 Johnny. Hawk is able to tank this kick and is shown to be good, but just accepts defeat. You could argue maybe Doug could be higher since he's shown to fight Miguel, but he doesn't really do too much, plus it's a presentation, so you could just say it was set up. In Season 1, Miguel may or may not be above the KK1 characters, just because of the fact that Season 2 Miguel is above Season 2 Hawk, but we know that Season 2 Hawk in this version is fatigued, while Season 1 Miguel would be less refined in skill. Stat-wise, he should be there, but I will say it is a little annoying to scale because we don't really know what to go off of, besides both characters being unquantifiably weaker. So he should still be in that ballpark regardless, and with this Season 1 Robby would massively upscale and definitely is more skilled than Season 2 Dimitri as well, so he'd be at the top of this tier. Now in G tier, we have Season 3 Kyler, Dimitri, Chris, and Resolve Amp Miguel. The reason Kyler is here is because he could get back up from attacks dealt by Season 4 Robby, whereas Season 1 characters don't have any good scaling besides being above the lower tier characters in Season 2, and Dimitri and Chris should upscale as they are both sparring partners, with Chris being above him, and Chris is shown to defend from attacks dealt by Season 3 Tori. Kyler did get good hits on Miguel as well, but to be fair, this man was on the brink of death, and if this resolved Miguel were at his best per se, he would just fold them. In F tier, we would have the Season 2 top tiers, and this is kind of self-explanatory because they all have somewhat vague scaling to Season 2 Miguel, but not really. In E tier, we have the majority of the Season 3 characters and some of the Season 4 ones. Paul and Steven both low-key can put up good fights with the likes of Hawk, Sam, and Tori. Plus, we have Doug being able to defeat someone with ease who was pressing Tori, and also just completely negging Chris. Whereas Chris could at least block a few hits before losing to Tori. Next up, we would have Miguel in Season 2, who can generate over 63 joules. And then Hawk by Season 3 upscaling above his Season 2 self, who puts up a decent fight against Miguel in the first place. Though we do know Miguel is holding back, plus Kyler and Chris have scaling to these Season 3 variants, so Miguel actually should be a good bit above them. But this is the highest he goes, unfortunately. Prime Miguel is not Season 2 Miguel, I'm sorry guys. Next up, we have Season 3 Enraged Hawk, Sam, Sean, and Robby, along with Chris and Kyler from Season 4. The 4 Season 3 characters are kind of obvious as to why they are here. Hawk while enraged is stronger than when he isn't. Sam beats Hawk and Doug 2v1. Robby with Cobra Kai is stronger than before, and Enraged Robby in season 2 was already established to be above Sam, since before the Rage Amp they were both relative. And then Sean does decent against Robby and Juvie. Chris and Kyler are above them due to breaking concrete with over 100 joules of force, and I know it's weird to see Kyler and Chris above season 2 Miguel, but we have to take into account the fact that these guys are able to pull off feats that we do not see the previous seasons pull off. And like how I said in the beginning of the video, it really depends on how you go about scaling Cobra Kai. Like, if you really want to say that season 4 Chris and Kyler don't have to be that much above, then they should be below the season 2 characters. But when looking at the actual feats and then looking into exactly how strong said feats are, this is where their stats would be. Bro, I'm not even gonna lie, like, when I was making this tier list, bro, this is off topic, this is future Tyler, and I'm sorry, but making this tier list and just scaling the season 2 and season 3 and season 4 variants of, like, the irrelevant characters, I almost lost my fucking mind, dude. You have no idea. But this list is gonna get way easier from here on out, so yeah, this is basically the midpoint. In C tier, we have the mid-tier season 4 characters like Suppress, Robby, Eli, and Miguel with no confidence, who'd all fold Kyler with ease. Kenny tags Miyagi-Do Robby easily and briefly combats a Robby who's going all out. Sam would upscale from the scaling beforehand, with Piper being above Miyagi-Do Sam but below Devin and Eagle Fang Sam, and Dimitri would be in between these two because he does alright against Robby. Now, Ned and Julie are at the top of this tier due to having calcs that put them at 128 joules of force. However, in C+, we have the season 5 variants of some characters, but they are suppressed or not going all out like Robby, Tori, Sam, and Hawk. Kyler does get a good hit on Eli with Dimitri slamming him, and Kenny is somewhat above Kyler as well and does alright against Eli even despite cheating. Devin is stronger than Kenny though, since she scales to suppress Tori and Sam somewhat, and Robby, while suppressed, is the second strongest, with Kenny using the silver bullet being the king of this tier. Even though Hawk was injured and the match was very scuffed, this version of Kenny still did pretty decent against a Eli that was solely using Miyagi-Do, and Kenny should be way above that version of him. Now in B tier, we have the 5 strongest kids in season 4 but at their peak, which should be slightly above Kenny, but Kenny definitely could hold his own. Now in A tier, we have the GOATs. We have Chozen and Danny, who can break stone in Karate Kid 2, but unfortunately in season 5 we actually see Tori do the same thing, and it's calculated to be slightly higher than the feat that Chozen performs, plus they are just way more skilled, so the gap is just too much for them to keep up. However, Mike does perform a slightly stronger feat when smashing raw bricks, being barely above Tori's stone breaking feat. But Mike, despite not training at all, is still able to scrap with Chozen, so Mike and prime kid Danny are still safely the strongest kids around, but I do think the season 5 variants could definitely press them. Now in S tier, we have the senseis, which makes sense as we see them being significantly above the children, and the season 2 and 3 scaling is super obvious with Danny, Johnny, and Kreese. I don't really need to get into that, but I do think the scaling gets very interesting when discussing season 5. The senseis that assist Terry unironically are shown to give Johnny some trouble and are fine after getting boxed up by Mike and Chozen. Suppressed Chozen was stated to be weaker than LaRusso, and we see Terry slap them both up. Drunk Johnny is weird because he's implying his tolerance to pain isn't really that significant in comparison to when he's sober, but overall he should be weaker because he is intoxicated, so his movements would be sluggish. So it's odd to say where he's exactly at, but I'll say he's like vaguely above base Johnny. And we also do know that it is confirmed that Terry caught him off guard, plus this blonde sensei has better feats than Terry anyway, and by the end Johnny has better scaling to him. The MMA fighter beats Johnny, but Chozen probably slaps him since he does slightly better against Hyun Woo. And speaking of, Hyun Woo, Min Jun, and the Eye Patch Sensei have scaling to the likes of Johnny, but the Eye Patch Sensei is the only one to do kinda okay against Rage Amp Johnny. And Kim is above everyone due to her narratively being implied to be above everyone else, but we don't necessarily know just yet if it's due to power or because of her reputation with Kim Sun Young. But for now, we'll just put her at the Queen of S tier. And in SS, we have essentially the prime adults. I know a lot of you are going to be confused as to why I have Danny above Silver because his best scaling is beating up an injured Silver, but the reason for this is because 1, Danny was actually nerfed in the fight against Silver, being enraged and not really using what he was taught, plus bro was like semi-drunk, like he was not at his prime at all, bro was washed. But on further notice, we know that Karate Kid characters do get resolve amps, and therefore this would make them more powerful, plus we know that Danny is also using the Quicksilver method against Silver, meaning he's not afraid to use either style now. And Mike may be above Terry since he scales to Chozen while injured, but with the weapon he would probably win. Chozen does fold a stronger version of Terry than the one that Danny does, plus Rage Amp Johnny folds every sensei in the room, including the one that 2v1'd Johnny and Chozen. Prime Terry and Kreese are slightly above since they do briefly fight Miyagi with Young, being at the top of this tier. And if we want to use the Mike Barnes scaling, Terry should just massively upscale above Mike Barnes and KK3 Danny, whereas Mike Barnes as a kid shouldn't be too far off as when he's an adult. Which is kind of weird to think about, but we have to understand that characters do get nerfed, which is shown with Johnny. And plus, he had his leg kicked in while he was being relatively chosen, so we need to take all of those factors into account. And obviously, the GOAT of this tier, we have the founding fathers of both styles, and it's literally been confirmed that they are just hands down those two strongest in the verse, and no character is going to be reaching them anytime soon, Mr. Miyagi and Kim Sung-young. And with that, this is the Cobra Kai Season 5 tier list. Wait. Forgot something.